Hello everyone, I am One Bird. In this video I want to concentrate on what I think are the best weapons available to you at level 20, so that includes all level 2 traders and the level 2 workbench. We're going to have a look at the ammunition used, and then we're going to look at some weapon builds for the M4, the RFB and the VPO 209. I'm going to kick things off by looking at the ammo chart. In front of us, I've got the EFT Monster ammo chart. This is the ammo chart I use the most. And up in front of us, I've got all the ammunition for 5.56x45 and 7.62x51. So every single round in those calibers is up on screen now. Very quick run through. On the left hand side, along the y-axis, the vertical axis, we got penetration ranging from 0 up to 70 at the top. And along the x-axis, the bottom horizontal axis, we've got damage ranging from 30 to 110. There's a couple of key lines to look at here with regards to damage. We've got the dashed line for the head at 35 damage and a dashed line for the chest at 85 damage. So if a round is to the right hand side of that head dashed line and you hit them in the head, you're going to kill them with one shot. If the round is to the right hand side of the dashed line for the chest, you hit them in the chest and you penetrate the armor, you're going to kill them in one shot. And then the horizontal grid lines, you've got armor classes, armor class 1 through armor class 6. And that corresponds with the penetration. The general rule of thumb is at 30 penetration, if your opponent is wearing armor class 3, then you should penetrate that armor with no problems. At 40 penetration, if your opponent is wearing armor class 4, you should penetrate that armor with no problems. So although I've done this very simple terms, hopefully that's given you an idea about this ammo chart and the resources that are out there available. If you want more detail on how ammunition and penetration and damage works, search it up on YouTube. There will be lots of videos out there from other content creators. I'm not quite sure I'm going to do better than some of the other content creators have already done explaining how it all works. The basic stuff that you need to know, I've just explained. That's it. That's what you need to know. So looking back at the ammo chart, I'm going to highlight 3 rounds, M856A1, M80 and AP, which in-game is AP-M. These 3 rounds are the rounds I'm going to tell you to use from level 20 if you want the best chance to kill an opponent that's wearing level 4 armor. The one advantage that AP-M has over the other 2 rounds, the damage is 90. You can see it's to the right hand side of the chest line. If you hit your enemy in the chest and you get a penetration, it should be a one-shot kill. These 3 rounds are going to be the rounds that I'm going to concentrate on, and we're going to build our weapons around those rounds. So first up, we've got a build for the ADAR. There's a cool trick with the ADAR. You can do 2 things with it. I've got a battered up ADAR here on my screen. I just bought it off Fence. I didn't find it out there in Tarkov, but you can just pick up scav ADARs in Tarkov, do this same kind of thing. So if you want to turn this into a fresh ADAR, all you do is go to Skier, select weapons, level 1, and here in red, you've got a small ADAR 2-15 5.56x45 carbine part, and that is the lower receiver for the ADAR. You just purchase that. And then you basically switch all of the parts from the busted up ADAR onto the good ADAR. And here we have a brand new full 100 durability ADAR. That's going to start the build off, but just before we go on to it, you can do exactly the same trick with the M4 lower receiver. So you just go to Mechanic, Level 2, and here is the Colt M4A1 low receiver that you need to basically do exactly the same as we previously did with the ADAR. Just swap the parts onto it and you convert your ADAR into an M4. The one thing that does is that changes the fire rate. So with an ADAR, you can only fire at single fire. With an M4, you can fire at full auto as well. So this is the build that I've put together for the ADAR Looks very different to the wooden version. So quite a few things have changed. We changed the buffer tube to the Colt A1 buffer tube, and that allows us to put on different stocks. In this case, we're putting on the Chris Defiance DS150 stock. In terms of pistol grip, I'm going for the standard M4 pistol grip. That's the AR-15 Colt A2 pistol grip. I have put on the standard M4 mag. In my weapon builds, I won't change the magazine from the stock version very often, especially in the lower level builds. We've removed the front and rear sights, and we've changed the gas block to the Daniel Defense Mark 12 low profile gas block. That allows us to put on the Daniel Defense RIS-2 9.5 handguard and the Zenit RK4 tactical foregrip. On the handguard, I've also put on the Surefire X400 tactical flashlight with laser. And then possibly the most important part choice, we've gone with the KAC QDC flash suppressor kit, and then we've attached the KAC QDSS sound suppressor, the silencer, onto the front of that. The suppressor you're going to have to buy off the flea market, but generally it runs pretty significantly cheaper than the actual cost to buy that from the trader. So while normally if I'm doing a lower level weapon build or a budget build, I tend to stick to the parts that you can buy from the traders because they tend to be cheaper than you can get them on the flea market. But in this case, going onto the flea market definitely allows you to get that suppressor at a cheaper price, and it really helps out the overall build. Finally, on the top, we've got the Alcan Spectre. I'm not strict on scopes. Put whatever scope you want on there. In this instance, we've got the Alcan Spectre, but you can change it for a red dot, for a hollow sight, for a scope. Put what you want on it. Overall, recoil on this build is a pretty healthy 60. But remember, you can't full auto with the ADAR version. Ergonomics, not so great, 33 ergo. In terms of total cost, for all of the additional parts, including the scope and the flashlight, you're looking at approximately 130k. Then you've got the cost of the ADAR. But like I said earlier, if you pick up a battered ADAR and then replace it with the part from Skier, the gun's going to cost you 7k. So in total, we're looking at up to 140k for this build. And if you purchase the M4 low receiver instead of the ADAR low receiver, that's an extra 14k. So that'll up the gun price to 155k. I think that's the better choice to go with the M4 version than the ADAR version. But hopefully I've shown you how to do it and you can experiment and make that decision for yourself. This is my build for the Caltech RFB. There's not actually that much we change on the RFB because you can't really change a hell of a lot. Let's start off with the grip. We're using the Zenit RK4 tactical foregrip. Best grip for level 2 traders, so that's why we're going to use it. Then up front to the muzzle, you have to add the RFB thread spacer, and that allows you to add on all of the other muzzle attachments. For this build, we're going with the AR-10 2A Armament X3 7.62x51 compensator. Bit of a mouthful. We are going to do a suppress build shortly. And then for the scope, in this case, I'm using the 6L Bravo. And then on top of that, we've got the PK06 reflex sight. With the RFB, I'll tend to treat this as more of a long-range weapon. It's got quite a bit of recoil. This build, the vertical recoil is 140, so it's on the high end. It's not full auto, it's only single fire, so you should really be using this at fairly long range. If you try and spam that fire button, you're going to find the recoil becomes almost uncontrollable. So that's why I like to have the longer range scope on there, rather than just a red dot sight. I'm really not aiming to get involved in close quarters combat with this rifle. So this build, vertical recoil 140, ergonomics 49. Looking at the silenced version, all we're going to do differently is we're going to change the muzzle device. We're going to swap that to a Silencer Co Hybrid 46 thread mount. And then we're going to attach the Hybrid 46 silencer on the front. And that gives us our silenced RFB at level 2. It drops the recoil by 1 point to 139 vertical recoil, but the ergonomics do suffer, going down to 33 ergonomics. So again, not the kind of rifle you want to be engaging close range. This is more of a long range weapon. I particularly like using this on a map like Woods, where I can certainly sit back, take my time, pick my shots, and silence my way to victory. I think in terms of using the X3 muzzle device and going loud versus using the silencer, if I'm playing solo, long range, I'm definitely going to be using the silencer. If I'm in a squad, I would be going for the X3 muzzle device. It's a cheaper build overall, and the recoil is no different. You get better ergonomics with it as well. So the downside to this build, you can't fit any kind of tactical device, no flashlight on this, no laser. But then again, like I've said earlier, the plan isn't to go into close quarters combat with this rifle, so having the flashlight or laser isn't strictly necessary. It does help out if you are going into areas that are dimly lit. Having that flashlight definitely helps out. Let's have a look at a build for the Moloch VPO 209.366 TKM carbine. I did discuss this weapon at level 1 traders. In its stock version, the recoil is around about 190 recoil. It's pretty uncontrollable, but it does have good ammunition that goes with the rifle. At level 2 traders, you can get a few attachments that makes the recoil more bearable and brings it down to the similar recoil of the RFB. And the ammunition, the AP-M round in particular, is probably one of the best mid-level white rounds because it has a similar penetration level to the M80 round, 92.7% penetration to level 4 armor, but the damage is really high, 90 damage. That means if you hit an opponent in the chest that's wearing level 4 armor, you can kill them in one shot. Whereas with the RFB, it will take 2 shots with the M80 ammunition. So that's the advantage of going with the VPO 209. Let's have a look at the build itself. First of all, the stock, we've put on the AK GP25 accessory kit, available from Prapor level 1. 4,051 rubles. This thing is a beast. Recoil percentage reduction is 5%. And if you consider rubles to effect, this is probably one of the best weapon attachments in the game. It works on pretty much every AK variant you can think of, and you should be putting it on virtually every AK variant that you can think of. This thing only gets outclassed once you get up to level 3 and 4 traders and you start to replace the whole stock. I've also put the Bastion dust cover on. You have to remove the normal sights to do that. Then we've applied the AK CAA RS47 handguard. Fairly expensive, but it gives you 2% recoil reduction. And with this rifle, you need recoil reduction, so you're going to have to pay for it. But the good thing is, overall, the cost of this build is really cheap. So yeah, you're spending a little bit of money here. It is worth it. Don't skimp out on this part. Then attached to that, we have the Zenit RK4 Tactical Foregrip. Same one as always. Finally, on the front of that, we've got the R43.366 TKM muzzle brake compensator. Again, you do need this part. It acts as a recoil reduction, but it's really cheap anyway. Try this one out. The ammunition is better than the M80 ammunition that goes in the RFB, but you can only get it from the flea market. And at this point in the wipe, you're going to be paying roughly 1,000 rubles per round. So it is expensive, but like I say, it's probably one of the best ammo choices right now in the wipe. Finally, if you want something really cheap, head over to Jaeger, pick yourself up the VPO 215 bolt action rifle. 18,000 rubles. And it fires the same ammunition as the VPO 209. So that's the .366 TKM AP-M round. If you hit someone in the chest wearing level 4 armor, you should get a one-shot kill with this round. Very simple build for this rifle. On the front, stick on the Rotor 43.366 TKM muzzle brake compensator. Put whatever scope you want on there. I'm going to opt for the Monstrum Tactical Compact Prism scope. It's a little bit cheap and it's got a decent zoom on it. One thing with the AP-M round is the muzzle velocity is fairly low, so it does suffer from drop-off. That means you can't use it at extended ranges. So although this sight is only a 2x sight, that's fine. And that's it. Build done. 105 vertical recoil. It's actually pretty good. But the fire rate is single fire and 30 rounds a minute. That's where you're suffering. Total cost of the build, 70 to 90,000, depending on prices of the flea market at the time. Definitely, this is one of the best budget weapons, early to mid wipe, as long as you use that AP-M round. This is great for doing stash running. I did a hell of a lot of stash running last wipe with this rifle. If we have a quick look at the comparison between the rifles, we can see that the ADAR, or M4, depending on which version you build, the recoil is much lower than the other builds, but it depends how you use the rifle. All of the other rifles are all semi-automatic, so you shouldn't be going in there guns a-blazing trying to fire off as many rounds as possible, because you are going to find it difficult to control the recoil. But then at the same time, if you opt for the M4 version at 60 recoil, full auto, you've got yourself a decent rifle there. You're just going to be paying that little bit extra for it. It depends how much you want to pay. Bang for your buck. If you feel like you can afford it, I would choose the RFB over the VPO 215, because although the ammunition's better in the VPO 215, the whole bolt action is quite limiting, and especially at close range, you're going to struggle with that VPO 215. Whereas at least with the RFB, it's not going to be fantastic at close range because the recoil is pretty hard to control, but you can still use it at close range. So overall, I mean, each of these rifles have their own strengths and weaknesses, which is why they're all in the build. If there was just one out-and-out rifle that I would say use that every single time, I would just make the build with that one rifle and say use that every single time. But I don't think there is. I think you have got some choice here, so feel free to try them all out. Hopefully that's given you some good conclusions. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know down below in the comments. I'm trying to grow the channel. I'm trying to get more subscribers and more likes, and hopefully these kind of videos, there'll be a few more of them in the future. Let me know what you want to see on the channel, and hopefully we'll get there. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you next time.